Welcome to the Magic and Miracles podcast, where we share and explore profound stories that bring science and spiritual together in the most illuminating and unexpected ways. A miracle is defined as something outside the realm of what you believe is possible for you. These stories will lift and enlighten, showing you that anything is possible. I am your host, Nicole Majik. Join me as we dive into real-life extraordinary stories that will captivate your curiosity, shift your mindset, and bring healing to your soul. From real-life angels to the strange and paranormal, get ready to embark on a new, inspiring journey with each episode that prove magic and miracles happen every day. Hello and welcome everyone to one more episode where we have some strange and paranormal things to talk about today. I'm going to introduce my next guest, who is Lester Velez. And Les is a graduate of the University of Vermont with a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration. Beginning in September of 1970, he served in the U.S. Army as a field artillery officer and was later vice president of Luscombe Engineering, a Silicon Valley-based manufacturer representative company. He joined MUFON, which is the Mutual UFO Network, in 1991 and has held the following positions: field investigator, training coordinator for field investigations, the assistant state director in Northern California, chairman of the A.E.R.C, which is the Abduction Experiencer Research Committee, and team leader for A.R.T, which is the Abduction Response Team. Also, during that time, he became a facilitator for an abduction support group in San Jose, California, and in 1994, co-founded Opus, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support. This is a major, amazing accomplishment for somebody to take on. And I want to welcome you, Les, for being on the show, because I really want to hear your story and how you became involved in MUFON and eventually created Opus. So what is the story behind this? Because people just don't happen upon something like this.
Yeah, absolutely right. Nicole, thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. Yeah, my story, I have to really back it up to when I was 11 years old. And this was when I was living in Connecticut. And I saw this up. And it scared the heck out of me because it was pretty damn close. And I ran into the house, and this was around dusk that this incident occurred. And tried to get my father to come out and take a look at this thing. And by the time he did consent to going out there, it was gone. And he said, "Oh, it's probably just a beacon of light reflecting off a cloud." Well, I didn't buy that. And shortly thereafter, I decided to go to the library, and I picked up some books on UFOs and started to read, these books. And back in those days, this is the late 50s, George Adamski was the big name in the ufology, and talking about his adventures with the Venusians. So anyway, became an adolescent, and girls became a little bit more interesting in my life other than UFOs, and I kind of forgot about it. And, finished the high school, went off to college, was in the ROTC, a Reserve Officer Training Corps. And then I met my wife actually in high school, and we eventually got married and moved down to Connecticut, where I had a job working with a company in the electronics field. And in 1985, I moved out to San Jose, California. And I picked up the San Jose Mercury News one day, and Stanton Friedman, a nuclear physicist, was coming to San Jose City College to talk about UFOs and a government cover-up. And well, it was like somebody threw a switch. And I said, "Oh my God, I got to go see this guy." And I did. I went and saw him, and he gave this incredible presentation. And on my way out in the foyer, there was a table set up by MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, which was actually founded here in Texas in 1969 by a couple of engineers. And they produce a monthly journal. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to get that. I want to read about the cases that they're involved with. And after a while, that wasn't enough for me. And they had a field investigator training course. So I decided to take that. And I completed the course, passed the test, and I started to investigate cases where people were saying that they saw these objects and described them, but also they were talking about the fact that they had contact with non-human intelligence. And the first couple of cases, I was kind of a nuts and bolts kind of a guy. I wasn't into this other realm, if you will. And but almost without exception, all these cases turned out to be, not only sightings, but people saying that they had contact with these entities. And so I started to really believe. And then one day, one of the people asked me, do you know of other people having these kind of experiences? And I said, yes, I do. And so the next thing I know, I'm facilitating a support group in my office. And so that's when things really got interesting, and heard so many fascinating stories about that, these experiences these people had. And one day, a newspaper man from the Monterey Coast Weekly paper wanted to do an article on what I was doing, because I guess they decided that they wanted to do an article on UFO investigation for some reason. Who knows why, back in those days. And so they had contacted MUFON headquarters, and they gave him my name. And so we came and did an interview, and went well. And they printed the paper, and my head probably this big on the front page of the paper, looking up in the sky, and UFO investigator, Velez, and it's like, oh my God. So anyway, a woman contacted me afterwards and said, hey, I'm in contact too, and I would like to understand what's going on with my brain waves when I'm in contact with these entities. And I kind of said to myself, I said, I don't know how I can possibly help her. But then she said she was working with an emergency room doctor down in Carmel. And that got my attention because I had a doctor friend, Eugene Lipson, that was interested in meeting other doctors that were interested in the phenomena. And so I called him up and I said, why don't we go see this person and see what we can gain from having a conversation with her. So we did. We walked down there. Oh, we rode down there, not walked. It's a little bit far to walk. But anyway, we went down there, and as we went into her house, there was a picture on the wall. And she's standing on the back of this vessel, if you will, in beautiful crystal clear blue waters. And obviously, I thought to myself, well, it's probably the Caribbean or something. And I said, what were you doing down there? She says, well, I was helping these treasure hunters. And I said, well, how were you helping these treasure hunters? She said, well, I was in contact with the captain of the galleon that had gone down. And I said, oh, really? So that started the afternoon off. And subsequently, what we found out was that she had had a near-death experience. And afterwards, she became very psychic. And all these types of things started to happen to her. And she was in contact with multiple different types of entities. And so we left that afternoon, and I said to Gene, I said, how can we possibly help people like this? And so we decided that we needed to put an organization together. And in 1994, I came up with the name Opus, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support. And we became officially a 501c3 nonprofit organization recognized by the I.R.S, which always cracks me up into the paranormal. Anyway, and as it turned out, we had a very broad brush type of an approach to this, because there's so many things under the, I guess, the banner of paranormal. I mean, it could be poltergeist activity, it could be spiritual awakening, Kundalini awakening, so many different aspects of the paranormal that exist. But over the years, for whatever reason, most of the people that have contacted us claim that they've had contact with these non-human intelligences. And, whether you call it abduction, whether you call it contact, or whether you call it experiences, it's all the same thing, depending upon whether or not it was positive or was it negative. And so, that got us going, and we've been doing it ever since 1994. And basically, the way we help people is threefold. One is that we have a confidential online support group where we have almost 400 people from around the world that are talking 24/7 with one another about their experiences, asking questions, making comments. And then we also have a referral network of mental health practitioners, hypnotherapists, psychotherapists, that if a person is looking for that kind of help, we can give them that. And then the last thing we have is a group of people that are very familiar with these types of topics that do triage with these people when they come to us, and basically have a conversation to find out, number one, what it is that they're looking for, and then number two, assessing them in a broad sense, whether or not perhaps they need some kind of psychiatric or psychological help, because of course those people do exist, and we want to give them the kind of help that they really need. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, as far as how we got started and what we're doing.
All right, that's some really great information. And I do want to ask you one question based on like when people come to you, and then get into some of these little side stories, because there's a million questions that are just coming up in my head, and I'm sure a lot of people out there. A lot of times, because when something paranormal happens to someone or whatever, when you have that experience, there's so many different things that can happen related to the person themselves as the individual, the human mind, and what it can handle at that particular time and its experiences, and the experience that is had, whether, because you mentioned a positive or a negative experience. And through these things, sometimes people can feel very confused in the beginning, right? Because when I had my near-death experience, a bunch of things happened sequentially afterwards that, I questioned a lot of things. You kind of go into this existential crisis, if you will, of refiguring things out, and what certain things mean at this particular time in your life, and so on and so forth. So when it comes to that confusion that people may be having in, oh my God, I had this thing, and if I go to somebody, they're going to give me a psychiatric evaluation, right? They're going to put me away into a home. Nobody's going to believe me. So there's a million things that trigger in the head. What can somebody expect from you guys in that compassionate space of, we know what you're going through, and we're going to help you with all the things that you do need in the support for it. Even some of that is a psychological, being able to evaluate, what it is you're feeling in that instance, so that you can make sense of something that doesn't make sense at all.
Yes, exactly. It's a profound experience. And I've always characterized it as a spiritual journey that these people are going through. Oftentimes these people have already gone to a psychologist or a psychiatrist because they thought they were going crazy, and they find out that they do not have a psychopathology. They're sane. They're okay. So then what do you do? Because most people, they can't talk to family members, they can't talk to fellow workers, they can't talk to clergy, and this overwhelming, feeling that people are going to think that they're nuts, and so it puts them in a very isolated type of a situation, and so the thing that we found that such a big help is the support group. They understand that they're not alone, that there are people having very similar experiences in their lives. And there are many phases to this process. And so we have people that are just coming in and just recently had experiences to people that have had many, many experiences. And so with that perspective, it's such a helpful process for them, because they can jump in right away and say, yeah, we know what you're going through. This is what's going to be happening probably next. And what I've found working with these people is that the first phase is quite traumatic. There's no question about it. No matter if it's a good experience or a bad experience, it's traumatic. And then you get to a point where you start to accept it, and you feel more okay with it. And then in the final stages, when it actually stops, it's almost like the Stockholm syndrome. Like, why aren't they coming for me? Why aren't they talking to me anymore? What did I do? So it's not just one. It's not just white, or it's just not black. I mean, we have good people here on this planet. We have bad people on this planet. We have the same thing going up wherever that is with these entities. That there's good ones and there's ones that are not so good. And but the majority of people that we've found after doing various research studies is that probably 80% are positive, and then the rest are still negative for people, and they come to us and they want to understand how to have this stop. And so we have a couple of recommendations as far as books that they can read about the way people have successfully stopped these things from happening to them. But the positive ones, people want it to continue. They're finding it very beneficial. And then there's other aspects to this whole thing which are physical in nature, very physical in nature, and then also psychological in nature.
Can you describe some of the things that people go through, whether it's physical or psychological?
Yeah.
That
Absolutely.
people can identify with, that might be out there, so they can say, oh geez, maybe I need a little support.
Yeah. Well, some of the common things people talk about are like lost or missing or compressed time that happens. Or hearing audible sounds before contact, sudden abnormal silence before feeling the presence, nosebleeds, unusual marks on the body, puncture marks, triangular marks, dots, surgery marks that heal abnormally fast. I was going to say, how's your scars healing? Spook
Pretty
marks.
good, actually.
Good. See, implants. Now, implants are a fascinating aspect. And let me digress here for a little bit and give you some background on. Pull out my notes on. There was a doctor who was unfortunately since passed away, Dr. Roger Lear, that did a lot of investigation on implants. And what they found is that these implants, there's no inflammatory or rejection reaction by the body to these foreign objects. That's number one, which is weird, because if you get a splinter in your finger, if you leave it there, it'll get red and hurt. There's no visible portal of entry. There's collections of specialized nerve endings surrounding the object, an outer coating of ceramic biological material, a metallic phase where inorganic metal becomes biological tissue. Now that's strange. The emission of radio waves, which are deep space frequencies in the FM band. Okay, now if you just get a splinter, you don't have radio waves coming off of these things. So these objects, in a lot of cases, have actually been transmitting. To who? For what reason? Electromagnetic fields in excess of 10 milligauss, composition of meteoric iron 66, rare earth metals such as U-236, a single isotope of uranium existing by itself, as well as elements such as uridium, which are very rare, hard to find in the Earth's crust. Non-terrestrial isotopic ratios indicating the involved elements did not come from Earth. Debunkers talk about the fact, well, show me the proof. This is proof. This is absolutely proof. They talk about carbon nanotubes, gold spheres with unknown function, metallic caverns that are no larger than the diameter of one atom, resistance to ordinary cutting techniques, So anyway,
How are some of these things found in people?
well, what happens is that these people sometimes, in the course of a day, you rub your face or something, or you feel something behind your ear. Whitley Strieber, who wrote the book Communion, he has an implant behind his ear, and he was probably just doing this one day and felt this thing, and there's another gentleman by the name of Terry Lovelace, who was in his early days in the Air Force. He has X-ray proof that he had an implant, and then when he was going to get it removed, the day before, I guess when he was going in, or I should say the day that he was going in to get it removed, they did an X-ray to just verify that where it was, and it was gone. It had been removed. And so, I mean, it's one of those. So, and so some people have said that these things are tracking devices, especially if they're emitting radio frequency waves of that nature. There's others that say that it's monitoring pollution levels in our body. And again, this goes back to the fact that, we've been in contact for eons. And this is nothing new. This has been going on forever. And then, of course, there's people that say that, our DNA has been manipulated. And this is why we are the way we are right now, because of that interaction with these entities. And there's so many facets to this thing. I mean, people that have been abducted, some come back with capabilities of healing people. I had a presentation. I did a presentation at the MUFON symposium a couple of years ago in Las Vegas to an experiencer group, and a couple came up to me afterwards, and this gentleman was a captain in the airport in Luscombe Airport Base, where this UFO came over the base and shut down all the missions. And he and his wife both had been abducted, and she came back after the abduction with this ability to heal people. And then there's many stories about, I was flying back again from another MUFON symposium, and I was sitting next to a woman who turned out to be the head of St. Jude Hospital. And we just making small talk, and, came up that I was at a UFO conference, and we started talking about the unusual things that happened. And she said, yeah, I've been involved with a case before I'm here at St. Jude of a woman that had cancer, and they were going to operate her on her. And the morning of the operation, they came in to get her, and she says, I don't need the operation. And they said, well, wait a minute, why don't you need the operation? She says, well, they came last night and they took care of it. So they thought she was just freaking out, and then, was scared about going to have the operation. And so they did wheel her into the OR, and but they, just to be on the safe side, because we're such a litigious society, they did another X-ray, and son of a gun, the cancer was gone. And there's many stories like that where talk about orbs, these objects that people see that are roundish and usually in a whitish color, but they can come in different colors as well. And then some of these have penetrated people's bodies. And there's another case that is well known about a man that had cancer, and this object went into his body. And then shortly thereafter, he was having a checkup, and the cancer was gone. And there's been the opposite happening, where these things have entered somebody's body and they've become sick. And autoimmune type diseases have been created. So there's so many facets to this thing that, you just, your mind, it's like a revolving, spinning top with so many different aspects of it. But other types of things, as far as the physical effects, paralysis, recurring headaches, eye and vision issues. The next one I have here is moving through a window in solid matter. This is also talked about, that all of a sudden these people are taken and they're gone right through a wall or gone through the ceiling. And, how the heck is that possible? And I had a case, this is a gentleman that came to us years after it actually happened. He was living near in Dayton, Ohio, near Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And he was abducted. And this is when he was a kid. I think he was 5 or 6 years old. And they took him through the window, okay, and he held onto his blanket. And the window, or the blanket, got stuck in the window and stayed there. And this military group came out the next day and took the whole window out. They took the whole window out of his house. And, we've been trying to corroborate this story because it evidently was written up in the local paper. But the issue that this article was written up cannot be found anywhere, not in the archives. The place that actually the newspaper place burned at one point, so they lost all their records, and then the library where they archive a lot of the old papers and things like that. That issue was gone. You can't find it.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, very, very crazy.
Can I share a story with you?
Sure, please.
Not this surgery, because I just had surgery recently, but I had something that happened during that surgery. But I actually want to back up to a different surgery I had maybe about 14, 15 years ago, where when I was going in, I was actually getting a tubal ligation done. And they told me when I went in there, I was the only one that day for that particular surgery, and, just small talk, getting prepped and all that stuff. And when they wheeled me into the surgical room, as I was about to go under, I saw one of my guides, one of my contacts that I've only seen a very rare amount of times. But it was this gold white mantis. And he showed up. So he always represents like something medical to me. And when he showed up, he was just standing there. They're very kind of weird. It's like they're like an awkward engineer, just like standing there. And I was like, "What are you doing here?" And he said to me, or telepathically, or felt, or whatever, however you want to describe it, he said, "I'm here to protect you." And I kind of was really confused, and I said, I went to say, "Protect me from," and then I was out.
Yeah.
And then I was out. When I came to, I was actually in full paralysis after the surgery. And so only my hearing was capable of working. Yes. Everything else, I couldn't move. I couldn't open my eyes, nothing. So nobody knew I was anything except I could hear. 2 nurses, one that was behind me on my left, and one that was walking up behind me on my right towards the other one. And she said, "Oh my God, what happened in there? What happened in there?" And then the other one, it was almost like I could feel her expressions, right? I felt like she was shaking her head and just like, "Oh my gosh." She's a difficult ligation, blood everywhere. Now I'm in my head going, "Are they talking about me?" And I'm backing up, remembering the conversation we had that I was the only one in there for that. And I'm like, "Oh my God, they're talking about me." So now I'm like, "Tell me more." Like, what is going on? And so, and I can only be in my head right there. And she was just like, oh, and at that moment, now I started coming to, so I was coughing because the irritation from
Yeah.
the tube and
Good.
all this stuff. And then she's like, oh, how are you? How are you doing? How are you feeling? And this surge of pain just went shooting down from my hip all the way down my leg. And all I could say was, ow, and I was trying to grab at my leg. And she said, oh, are you in pain? I said, why does my leg hurt so bad?
Mm.
And then she said, oh, it was probably the position the doctor had you in. So not knowing me or my brain and how it works, and I just went into matter of fact mode of, what do you mean position that the doctor had me in? It's a tubal ligation, it's a laparoscopic surgery. There are only a couple incisions. What position did he have to have me in? And then I got bumped up with morphine.
Oh, put you out again.
Yeah, stop asking questions. I
Yeah.
never found out what actually happened.
Mm.
But apparently, and then
Gosh.
they were trying to get me out of there. And I'm like, I am so effed up on morphine right now.
Yeah.
Like, I
Oh,
can't get out of
geez.
here.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And
Yeah.
nobody told me what happened, but apparently it was very difficult. There was blood everywhere, and I was in positions that I probably didn't need to be in had it actually run well. Yet here I am, and I was protected. So thank you, Mantis Sky.
Well, it's interesting because now you've reminded me of the story. Last year, I had open heart surgery, and evidently there was a moment during the surgery that there was some real concern, and I lost a lot of blood. And again, like your situation, saying that there was so much blood all over the place. My daughters went to a medium. They went to a spa down in Tucson. There was a medium down there, and they happened to utilize her. And the medium said that there was definitely an intervention during my surgery by whatever. Now I didn't see anything that I recall anyway, but she came out and used that terminology that there was an intervention. So thank you, whoever you were.
Right.
Exactly, exactly.
And
Yeah.
it's definitely an interesting experience. And I feel like with the surgeries, because we're put under, we're given the anesthetics that that are very strong. It's with this last surgery, I knew things before they happened. I went into this surgery knowing that anything could happen.
Mhm.
And I also felt myself leave and go visit different places and, my guides and a bunch of things, and came back with a lot of new enlightenment, a lot of new information for myself, for my life, and moving forward. And there's just this energy too, where
Mhm.
I can feel things inside of me, like
Mhm.
where healing's taking place in my innards.
Yeah.
It Those organs are vibrating and
Mm.
radiating out, that it's kind of feels weird for me to lay down in quiet, because I feel like I'm like vibrating off the bed. Like I'm
Wow.
just gonna, you
Yeah.
know, like just fall off, like come off, because there's just,
Wow.
I can feel different energies happening and
Mhm.
going, and then when they stop, and then they're going, and then they stop, and then they go for hours. And it's really interesting, the different things that can happen. And I love that you have these doctors that are involved in your group, because they must see some crazy stuff.
Yeah, well, for sure. I mean, we just don't understand what's really going on. I mean, we have conjecture, we have ideas, perhaps, But to say that it is, XYZ, it's very difficult to say that. All
Yeah.
we can do is take that experience, be in the moment, and then go with it. And then maybe while you're dreaming or something, something will come to you and it'll make it more clear. Yeah,
How
there's no
common do
way
you
for
think
it.
this is? I feel like
Oh,
I
okay.
feel like it's way more common than anybody
All right.
realizes.
This is something that I've been uh, proselytizing about, if you will. That I believe we've all had experiences, whether we consciously remember them or not. Back in 1992, the Roper organization did a poll, and they came up with like 6 million people in the United States have had experiences. Well, move forward in time. This is a worldwide phenomena. So there's millions and millions of people that have had experiences. But now I take it one further step and just say that we've all had experiences, but sometimes you remember them, sometimes you don't. And I'll give you an example of that. In one of the support group meetings, one of the people in the group says, "Hey, I've seen you before." I said, "Really?" I said, "Where? A UFO conference, something?" No, I saw you on board the craft. Real? Wow, okay. So I kind of blew it off. I didn't, I had no conscious recollection of ever having that kind of experience. It was like a year and a half, 2 years later that a totally different person in the support group says, "I've seen you before." I said, "Where? UFO conference?" No. You were sitting on this bench naked on board the craft and you were freaking out, and they told me to go over to you to calm you down. Oh, at that point, I decided to go get regressed. And I did. I had 3 separate regressions, and nothing like that came up in any of those regressions. However, I had multiple past lives. Multiple past lives. I was a samurai warrior in one. I was a Greek soldier. I was an Irishman fighting. I was like a soldier in almost every one of them. And as a matter of fact, in this lifetime, I've been a soldier, in the artillery. And the only recollection that I had in another past life was that I was a restaurant owner in 1800 Spain or something like that. So, but that was the only one that was different. And then somebody told me, because I told this story to a number of people, and they said, "Well, perhaps you had an experience in a past life where you were abducted, and this person somehow tapped into that." I don't know. I guess anything is possible because evidently these entities can manipulate space and time.
Yep.
They'll bring you back. Not only after they've taken you, but they bring you back before they've taken you.
Isn't that crazy? When I had my near-death experience, I ended up 2.5 miles away from where that experience was.
Yeah. That is very common. That is very common. The Betty and Barney Hill story, where they had all this missing time and they were down the road so many miles, and that is so common. That is so common.
Yep.
And so yeah. So continuing on as far as these physicality of all this thing, being taken up in a beam of light, people talk about all the time. Lying on an exam table and being probed in so many ways. Missing fetuses for women, out-of-body experiences, poltergeist activity, orbs, telepathy, psychic abilities, metallic taste in the mouth, feeling of heat and sometimes sunburn after an experience. So, I mean, in my book, The Unknown Other and the Existential Proposition of Alien Contact, which is on Amazon, I go through all of this stuff. I mean, I talk about hybrids is another thing that people are talking about, that these entities have manipulated our genes, our DNA, and combined it with theirs. And so, and they perfected it to such a degree that you can't tell them from you and me. Maybe I'm an alien, maybe you're an alien. I don't know. But yeah, so that's another thing that is talked about quite a bit, the hybridization process and why that's going on. Whether it's to help them survive because they can't produce the way they used to, or it's basically a very interesting way to take over. Because eventually we'll be them.
And it's all depends on, what side of the fence you're looking at it from,
Mhm.
too, right? Your perspective means everything, and we don't know all the information. So we can only speculate with these, tiny human brains of ours.
Exactly. I mean, they're having a hard time. I mean, even with the nuts and bolts aspect of this thing, and how these craft could possibly operate and defy gravity and defy certain laws of physics, that they can go, from a dead stop to, thousands and thousands of miles an hour and then make right turns, which would turn a normal human being into mush. So and so I think that's the first step in understanding this phenomena is the physical, aspects of it. And then the second phase, of course, is now the psychological and dealing with people that have had these kinds of experiences.
Yeah.
And I know the government is very aware of the experiencer community. They've been trying to understand what's going on for years and years, and of course, they've not been very honest about that.
There's so much to know and understand, and people freak out. So, and that's part of what Opus is here for us, to help you get out of that freak out mode when you're experiencing something. It's like you're short circuiting for a moment or, however
Yeah.
many days, months, until you can kind of make some sense into it. So, if you are having that feeling, or if you do in the future, or if you feel like you've had a contact or some kind of paranormal experience that you just want to connect with people who will compassionately understand where you're coming from and help you get your head back on your shoulders so that you can figure out, what does that mean for you in your life and your journey? Reach out to Les. And Les, can you please let us know, like, where can people find you? How can they contact you? And, what do they need to do? Can they just be like, help?
Well, yeah, we make it as simple as possible for people. All they have to do is contact us at opusnetwork.org, which you can see here on my on my background. And there's a contact. There's two buttons. There's a support button and there's a contact button. The support button is where you would want to go if you're looking for help, whether it's being in a support group, whether you're looking for a mental health practitioner. In any of those cases, one of our triage people will contact you and find out what it is that you're looking for. And then the other thing too, as far as the contact button is concerned, sometimes people just want to tell a story or they just want to get something off their chest and they can send it there. But we're also looking for more mental health practitioners that are interested in the phenomena, but also hopefully have some background in it. So we're always looking for, professionals like that, whether they're hypnotherapists, certified hypnotherapist, or licensed mental health practitioner. We are constantly looking for people like that because for people that really have the kind of background, that's the mental health community is not fully on board yet, and neither is the medical community. And so there's a process that we're trying to do to educate this segment of society, to open them up to the fact that there's something going on, and these people do not have a psychopathology. Debunkers always talk about the fact that well, these are it's due to sleep paralysis. What's going on? Well, 2/3 of all cases, whether in a bedroom or not, do not involve sleep paralysis. Then they also talk about false memory syndrome. And the American Psychological Association or any other mainstream psychological diagnostic system has either ratified or proven such a diagnosis. And then fantasy proneness, studies such as the omega-3 study, which I did, and it was funded by MUFON. This was back in 2007. We found out that these people did not, we basically took 71 people that claimed that they had contact and 51 people as a control group. And they did not have a psychopathology. They were not fantasy prone. The other thing that we found out in that study was that their temporal lobe activity was different. And so that's something that has come about more recently as far as Gary Nolan from Stanford University has conducted some testing. And they found that in the area of the brain called the caudate and the putamen, there was a lot more connections in that area with people that had psychic telepathic capabilities, and that it's almost like we're evolving, and this is the next generation that's going to have telepathic capability. And whether you say you were vibrating to another level, this process is going on, and so where it's going to end up, it's interesting, but I think we're lucky in the sense that certainly in your lifetime, hopefully in my lifetime, that we will definitely know that we're not alone, that we do have these objects, we do have captured or dead aliens or what have you, and that there will be proof, there will be definitive proof that this has been going on. So yeah, contact us at opusnetwork.org. Go see my book on Amazon, The Unknown Other and the Existential Proposition of Alien Contact. And if you're a Kindle Prime user, you can get it for free. And then the paperback is $20, and the regular Kindle is like $9.99 or something like that. But and all the proceeds, by the way, all the proceeds go directly to Opus. I don't get anything for it. That's my contribution to the cause, if you will.
Ah, that's amazing. So again, everybody, The Unknown Other and the Existential Proposition of Alien Contact. Buy that book, whether it's Kindle or, paperback through Amazon, and check out opusnetwork.org. We had such a wonderful conversation here today, Les. I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, and also your support to others that are out there that may need that extra support at some point in time. So contact Les, and we will see you next time on Magic and Miracles. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And
Thank you,
Les.
Thank you for joining us for the Magic and Miracles podcast, where everyday folks like you share their life-changing stories. The world wants to hear your extraordinary story, so is it about time you tell it? You might just end up being someone else's miracle waiting to happen. If you would like to be a guest on the show, please submit your application for consideration. If you would like to nominate a guest or submit a personal story to be read on the show, please contact us via email. In the meantime, enjoy the journey. You never know when you will experience a miracle that will change your life forever, or if you will become someone else's real-life angel. Goodbye for now, and see you on the next episode of Magic and Miracles, the podcast with wings.